Alright, so today what we're going to do is we're going to create two different classes, and we're going to talk a little bit about object-oriented programming, but we're also going to talk about getting user input with the mouse. So what I want you to think back to is when we did the object room and we defined different classes for, like, we defined a class for the bed, maybe a class for the dresser, we defined a class for lamps, and we saw that we could make different lamps. And so we're going to kind of use that idea today. And the first class that we're going to create today is going to be a ball class. Okay, so we're going to have this thing in our other class that's called a ball. Okay, and it's just an object in another class, so we don't want it to have a main method. We don't want to run it. We just want to use it inside this other class. Okay, so the other class that we're going to create is going to be BallWorld. Okay, so BallWorld is going to have MyWorld as a superclass. And so we want to make sure that we have MyWorld inside of the project that we're inside of. So object-oriented programming has MyWorld, so that's going to work. And we want this thing to have a main method so that we can run it. Okay? So we're going to start working in here. But we've already created the ball class, so that's just public class ball. Over here we want this BallWorld. And inside of BallWorld, inside the main method, I want to get rid of that stuff and say that I'm making a new BallWorld. Okay? So when I run, it's going to find the main, it's going to make a new BallWorld, and if I do that, we just get this thing. Okay, this is my BallWorld right here. So what I would like to do is add a couple balls in there. So I'm going to go up here and I'm going to create private ball, my ball, and I'm going to just say that that's a new ball. Okay. So here what we're doing is we're declaring a ball object called myBall. Now I can do that because I've already defined a ball class. Okay, and then here we're saying new, so we're going to instantiate myBall. We're going to make it into a new thing, and the thing that we're going to make it into is a ball. All right, so that kind of hopefully makes sense to you. And we're going to do another one called your ball. Okay, so same idea. Now, what we'd like to be able to do is see those balls inside of this world. In other words, we'd like to draw those, all right? And so that leads me to talking about what we can define over here in ball, all right? So if it makes sense to you, hopefully you're thinking to yourself like, well, my ball and your ball don't have to be in the same place. My ball and your ball don't have to have the same color, okay? So we're going to define basically variables over in the ball class that are going to keep track of position and color for any ball object. Okay, so let's go ahead and go over to the ball class and do that. Okay, inside of ball, we're going to have private int x and private int y, and those are going to define the position of the ball. And then we're going to have private color, and I'm just going to call it hue so that we're not calling it color. Hue is just another word for color, so we're going to call it hue, and that's what's going to keep track of the color of this ball. Okay. If you want, you can go ahead and import color. So that makes it so that it can see color now. And the other thing that we're going to do in here is we're going to define a constructor for ball. Okay, so remember that over here, when we do this line of code, this is declaring myBall, saying we're going to have a ball type variable called myBall. Okay, and then this second half of this, where we say myBall equals new ball, this is saying we're going to make something new, a new object, and we're going to do it by constructing a ball. Okay, so that right there is going to call over to the ball class to this new method that I'm creating right now called public ball. Okay, so this is called a constructor. All right, and inside of this constructor, we just want to give some kind of some default values for x, y, and hue. So for x, I'm going to set that to 50. For y, I'm going to set it to 100. And for hue, I'm going to set it equal to the color red. Okay, so color.red. So make sure you copy that down. Okay, so then the other thing that we want a ball to be able to do is we want to be able to draw it in the world that we have over here. Okay, so in order to do that, I have to define a method. So I have to say, if you want to draw a ball, you're going to call on this public void draw method. And in order to draw, we need to know some graphics. And we're going to call those graphics G. So that's a parameter inside of that method. I'm going to go ahead and import graphics right now. Okay, and basically what we want to do is we want to set the color to this hue. So I'm going to go G dot set color hue, and then our ball is going to be just a circle, right? So we want the graphics to fill an oval. X and Y makes sense to just stay X and Y, and then we're going to say we want the width and the height of this thing to be 50 and 50. All right, so make sure you copy that draw method down as well. So this is how we draw a ball. Okay, so now over in BallWorld, we're going to take advantage of the fact that we have a ball, and we can construct it this way, and we can also draw it this way. Okay, so BallWorld now, we're going to go over here, and we're going to say my ball dot draw, okay, and then your ball dot draw. Okay. And then once you add those two lines of code in, I'll give you a second to do that, then we're going to go ahead and run this class and see what we've just done. Okay, so hopefully you have that copied in now. We're going to run this thing, and there it is, okay? So it looks like, well, we just have an oval there. So this is one of the balls, right? This is either my ball or it's your ball, or really it's kind of both, okay? So the way that we did this, the way that this works is when I click run, right, it goes to the main method, makes a new BallWorld, and that automatically draws this frame, and it draws whatever it's told to draw inside of its draw method. So it's going to my ball, and it's drawing. Well, my ball is a brand new ball, right? So this new ball over here tells it to go over to the ball class, do the constructor, set x equal to 50, set y equal to 100, and set hue to color.red, okay, or just red if you want to think about it that way. All right, then when we're drawing my ball, okay, goes over here, does this draw method, sets the color of the graphics to hue, fills an oval at 50, 100 with a size of 50 and 100. And it does the same thing for your ball. So your ball is a new ball. It does the same thing. X and Y are 50 and 100 respectively. Hue is red. When it draws it the same way. So what we're looking at here is actually my ball, and your ball is on top of that. Okay? How can we prove that? Well, it would be nice if we could move one of those things. Okay? So what we're going to do is we're going to define how we move a ball. All right? Now, what we want is basically we want BallWorld to tell us when to move the ball, and we want ball to be in charge of moving itself. Okay, so hopefully that makes some sense to you. The way that we define a new thing that a ball can do is by defining a method inside of that class. Okay, so we're going to define a move method, and there's a few things that you have to ask yourself when you're defining a method. Okay, so the first thing you should define yourself is what's the name of the method. Okay, well, if we want to move the ball, then we should probably just call it move. The next thing that we should define is what goes in front of move. In other words, what type of method is it? Is it void or is it something else? If we're just going to change something about the ball or the variables that the ball defines, then we're going to say that it's a void method, that it's not going to return something. So what we figured out so far is that pretty much every method we write is public. So we're going to say this thing is a public void move. Okay? Now, the next thing that we have to figure out is, do I need to know any information in order to move a ball? Okay? And so if you think about this, if I just say like, hey, move, and you might be thinking to yourself like, well, how am I supposed to do that? But if I said, you know, move over there, and I pointed somewhere, then you could kind of understand that. Or in the case of this, you know, what am I changing when I move a ball? What do you think I'm changing? Am I changing the hue? Am I changing X? Am I changing Y? And hopefully you look at that and you say, well, you're going to change X and Y. You're going to move to a different position. So what we need to know then is what's the new position. So if I tell a student to move, right, I'm going to tell the student to move, hey, move to the third row, second seat. Okay? I'm not going to just tell them, hey, move, and you pick where you move. No, I'm going to give them directions. This is exactly where I want you to move. Okay? And the way that you do that when you're writing methods is you say, well, in order to move the ball, we need to know two numbers. We need to know this int, which is going to be the new X. Okay? And we need to know another int, which is going to be the new Y. All right? Then inside of here, what we can do is say, this X and Y that the ball keeps track of are going to change. We're going to change X to be the new X. And we're going to change Y to be the new Y. All right? So now what we've done is we've said a ball can move. We've given it a new ability or a new behavior, something that it can do. It can move. And then over in the BallWorld class, what we can do is we can say when we want this thing to move. All right? And the way that we're going to do that is by using some mouse methods. Okay? So we're going to go in here and we're just going to add another method in here. And this one is going to be public void mouse clicked. Okay, so the way this works is mouse clicked has to have this parameter mouse event, and I just call that mouse. And so let me just point out some things here. It's a void method. This M has to be lowercase, mouse capital C clicked. Inside of the parentheses, mouse event with a capital M and a capital E. This, you could name it something else, but I just always call it mouse because it seems like it makes more sense to me. Okay. This mouse event needs to be imported, so we're going to go ahead and do that. All right. And then inside of here, what do we define what we want to have happen when the mouse is clicked. Okay, so this seems kind of crazy that you can just do this. The reason that you can just put in mouse clicked like this, this method, is because this is extending my world, and I've done a bunch of stuff in my world to make this work. Okay, so we'll add some other things on here as well, and I'll explain that a little bit better, but let's just kind of go with it for now. When the mouse is clicked, I want my ball to move to wherever the mouse was clicked. So to do that, we're going to go in here and we're going to say, when the mouse is clicked, my ball dot move. And you can see it already starts to figure out that I want to move to the new X and the new Y. So I'm going to just do that. And then I have to define what the new X is. So for me, the new X is going to be wherever the mouse is. And the way that I get that from the mouse is I go mouse dot get X. Okay, and then I'm going to say the new Y is mouse dot get Y. All right, so what I've done now is I've made it so that when I click the mouse inside of BallWorld, my ball is going to move to the position of the mouse. Mouse is X. That's how you get the mouse's X. Mouse dot get Y. This becomes the new X, this becomes the new Y, And there's one more thing that I need to do inside of here, and that is repaint. Okay. So let's go ahead and run this so you can see kind of what happens. So I'm going to run this. And now, looks the same, but now when I click, I'm moving my ball to wherever I'm clicking. Notice that your ball is staying there. I haven't added a condition, or I haven't added something to happen when your ball moves, or when your ball should move, right? I'm just saying over here that my ball moves when the mouse is clicked. So that's how that works. And I'm just going to kind of change this up to look like this real quick so that you guys can kind of understand what's happening. So, defining this mouse clicked method inside of the BallWorld class means that the BallWorld will react when the mouse is clicked, and this method gets called anytime I click the mouse. What we're saying should happen is we're saying my ball should move, so my ball gets this method called, right? That is this. Mouse.getX is being passed to the new X. Mouse.getY is getting passed to the new Y. And when the MyBall object receives the new X, it assigns it to its X position. The new Y assigns it to the Y position. Okay, then we come back to here. Repaint happens, and repaint is just a method that says clear out the frame and redo draw. So now it's going to draw my ball, tell my ball to draw. When my ball draws again, the hue has stayed the same, but X and Y have changed because of the move method, and so now we see the ball in a different position. We didn't change the position of your ball, we didn't move your ball, and so that doesn't change, okay? And so we see that happening here. Every time I click, it's changing my ball's position, okay? So, mouse clicked, looks like that. Let me just give you the other mouse methods that we have, okay? So, mouse clicked is one method, mouse moved, mouse pressed, mouse released, mouse dragged, mouse exited, and mouse entered are all different methods that we can use to define when we want something to happen, okay? So, they all look exactly like this over here, just the name of them changes, okay? And then let's just kind of talk about this. Mouse click is pretty self-explanatory. When we click the mouse, that happens. Anytime we move the mouse, this method would get called. A click is a press and release pretty much at the same time, right? We press and release the mouse right away, so that's what makes a click. If we just pressed, that would trigger the mouse pressed method. Later on, we would have to release the mouse eventually, and that would trigger this method. Dragging, okay, is a press and then a move. So when you drag something, remember, like you press it and then you move the mouse and that drags the thing around or whatever, okay? Exited is when you have the mouse inside the frame and the mouse leaves the frame. That's an exited. And entered is when the mouse is outside the frame and it goes in, okay? So those are the 7 things that the 7 methods that we can add on. So what I'd like you to do now is add a mouse dragged method that moves your ball. So we have mouse clicked to move my ball. We want a mouse dragged method that is going to move your ball.